Okay, welcome everyone to the Analytic Minds podcast. Today I'm joined by Richie Bachala. Hopefully I've got that right. You can correct me if I got that wrong, Richie. Richie is calling in from Ohio in the States and works for a company called Sherwin-Williams. And I think there's so many interesting things that we can go into around data engineering in this episode. So I'm really excited to jump into it. Richie's been working with in the space for a very long time and with Sherwin-Williams for a long time. So I think there's some global experience that we can leverage off during this particular episode. So yeah, really looking forward to jumping in. So Richie, why don't I just throw it to you? You give us a much better background, a much better overview of your background and what you're currently doing now.
Sure. Thanks. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me, Sam. It's Richie Bachala. So I work for Sherwin-Williams, like you just mentioned, and I manage our global data engineering team. And I've been within the data and analytics space, formerly BI, business intelligence space, for a little over close to around 5 years. But prior to that, I was in data integration space and middleware space for Oracle. And prior to that, I started my career consulting in Oracle ERP, predominantly EBS based work, and which kind of evolved a lot into Oracle middleware and integrations. It also did a little bit of product development at Oracle, 10 years ago. But anyways, currently at Sherwin, just a background for people who don't know Sherwin-Williams, we are the world's largest consumer-based paint manufacturing company, and we are in about 120 countries. And basically, when you say paint in the US, everybody thinks about Sherwin-Williams, and also for most part, internationally too. So my team here that I manage at Sherwin is truly of global in nature. So since we are in such a large, geographic placement, I need to have strategically placed teams that are, that service our Latin region based off of Mexico City. So I have a small team out there, and then for EMEA region, there's a few developers or data engineers that are based off of a couple of different locations within UK and Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. There's a small team out there that services our APAC and ANZ, Australia and New Zealand region. And here we are headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. And with the recent acquisition of Valspar, I also inherited their data warehouse developers from Minneapolis. So basically, 5 different locations the data engineering team that I manage is based off of, and it's fairly large. And we also have a lot of consultants. We have our footprint currently is a lot of on-prem data that is moving into the cloud. So enabling a lot of that effort and our journey from on-prem into the cloud is kind of what we're leading towards. I hope that's a good background there, Sam.
Yeah, man, that's great. That's great. Now, what I think would be good is data engineering is not a term that has come up much in any previous episodes. So do you want to maybe just give us like a really short rundown exactly what I think everyone sort of conceptually knows what it means, but I think it'd be good to sort of just elaborate on day to day what that means.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Business intelligence is where this all started. Business intelligence was a key terminology that's been around for a long time, a decade and a half, and a lot of things evolved from BI to data visualizations and analytics based, infograph based reporting solutions. And in the back end, if you step back about 15 years, the standard way of doing reporting from an OLTP applications is by building a star schema. You either have 2 methodologies. You either go using the Kimball methodology or the Inmos methodology. So when you pick one of those, you basically are building a smaller reporting data model, which is good for reporting and in a more realistic manner and better performance. A lot of that has changed with the evolution of cloud, because the reason why you have to do a lot of star schema modeling and data modeling is because of the lack of compute resources, is because your runtime for doing large scale metrics and aggregations is going to be very expensive and intense, and in order to get any business insights, it takes forever. So with that, with that not being a lot of an issue, I mean, big data is not a problem anymore. The problems that we have right now is moving data from on-prem to the cloud, doing ETL, modern data ingestion and data transformation solutions that are needed. So that's where my team predominantly focuses. So like majority of the team are by default data warehouse developers. They are very skilled in building very complex star schemas with metrics and aggregations that are needed for reporting. But in a sense, we are now coined ourselves as a data engineering team from being data warehouse and ETL developers in the past, is because of the evolution of the cloud and what we are and our efforts into making cloud more accessible. So that kind of where data engineering as a term does fit in, and it is kind of coined by Gartner, I believe, initially, and it has been catching up quite a lot here in the in the Bay Area. It started to be a thing, and now the evolution is data engineering is needed, so data scientists can do their work. So business analysts can do their work because they don't have to wrangle and do a lot of these. Create a lot of these data pipelines. That is all responsibility of us. I mean, and also enabling a data repository, like a data lake for analytic solutions, is also part of our responsibility. So our background is everything in the back end, everything that is not needed by the analysts on the front end. It kind of comes back to my team in short.
Nice. No, I like that. I think another way to look at it is, another way that I'm trying to frame it is sort of like you're building these virtual data pipelines, right? So you're sort of evaluating your data, where data is located in its rawest form, and you're trying to build the pipelines up to an organized data lake or pool of data assets that everyone can draw from efficiently and more easily than they have been in the past.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that's about 1/3 of our primary responsibility is to make sure how those common data sets, we call them globalized data sets, because you're the same data from different applications looks a little bit different nomenclature wise, and also your ER diagrams look a little different. So in order to build globalized data sets, meaning hey, you have 4 different ERP systems in Latin America per se, which is a lot more complex than us the way we have it. But for a particular problem that we're trying to solve, say with our 4 different ERP systems, and you need to per se bring in various supplier information or various supply chain related data sets from these, and then you have to normalize that in a standardized format to enable globalized reporting available. So yes, the virtual data pipelines, virtualization is also something we do a little bit, but it is not all solutions. It is not a solution for all our problems, but there are certain business use cases. Maybe we are 2 to 5% of our use cases are something that virtualization can solve, but otherwise we still like building data models because it solves the problem for most part.
Right, nice. I think there's a lot that we can dive into there, which I'm quite excited about, because not everyone is going to have the resources to have some data engineer or data engineering team like you have, right? And so I think there's lots of different parts to your role that I think others could replicate in some way when they don't have those resources. So I definitely want to dive into that. But before I do, I just want to get your perspective on how your role has changed with the emergence of sort of the self-service aspect of data analytics, because that really, to me, has been, it's a 5 to 8 year. It's only been happening sort of over the last 5 to 8 years, and I would, and that's more sort of like my background is more on the sort of business side, more so than your experience. And so I wonder how your particular role has evolved during that time.
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, we enable, so my user base is about 11,000 users within the company that consume our data for various purposes, right? There is no way my team was able to service like thousands of people for varied, reporting requirements. We strongly advocate and evangelize the self-service based eat, data analytics platform. So our solutions are always custom built for encouraging self-service. And you are rightly said. I mean, it is easier to build and give them a report, but we don't want to. So Tableau, with the evolution of Tableau and tools like Power BI, you make the data sets available. So Tableau, you call them data TDEs or Tableau data sources. So you generated a globalized Tableau data source, and then you put it out there. And it's an enterprise data source for, say, incident management or defect tracking for for a particular region. So when you have that available, all the local stakeholders and the business unit managers and the mid-level managers go and access that same data set, and it is available all the way across, all the way top. So that is our vision and how we are operating on a day-to-day basis. And to answer your question, how has self-service changed? Self-service has changed quite a lot. I'll give you an example. So the way Tableau came into our organization here at Sherwin-Williams is we had no idea. So we were still evaluating, platforms like, should we go with Power BI? Should we go with Tableau? Or should we look at other options? And because since we are an Oracle shop, we were, should we look at Oracle, Analytics Cloud or, options that are similar. So even while that was going on, we went to a user because we are IT. So we went to our local Tableau user group just to, hey, the local account reps invited to us, and then we went there. And then there were a bunch of people from our user base was in the first two rows. So towards the end, when the user group was ending, and when they asked, how many of you guys are Tableau customers? We see a bunch of them raise their hands. They're like, wait, we don't have Tableau. We don't have an enterprise implementation of Tableau. What's going on here? So
that's so funny.
After the end of the user group, we go back and say, hey guys, so you guys are Tableau customers? How's that? It's like, oh yeah, we bought Tableau. It's like, what do you mean you bought Tableau? So they all went and bought Tableau desktop licenses for their desktop using their corporate AMXs. And I said, so how are you getting the data? Well, we're taking an extract from OBIE and business objects and dumping into an Excel sheet and adding it into Tableau, and then we're building our visualizations. So that was a rude awakening. I mean, and then we realized, we scanned that there were like a lot more pockets of such, pocket BIs, and we had to, take that as feedback and go into it and say, hey, what do we do to enable what you guys want to do? But we don't want you to duplicate the data. We don't want you to make flat files, take extracts, and do all that. We'll manage all that. So that's my team's responsibility as data engineering team. We'll give you the extracts. You guys go do your thing on the analysis part. So we encourage that. I mean, that's how Tableau came about, and now we are a lot bigger Tableau shop locally here, with a big footprint of user base using Tableau for the future. And then on the back end, we use Snowflake as well. But I'll hold off for your next question.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, that's super interesting how the self-service aspect of your analytics initiatives got basically started. With business users sort of just going over the top and figuring it out for themselves. But I dare say that's not unique. That's not as probably unique as you think. Like that has probably happened in a lot of places. And I think a lot of it has to do with the functionality of, say, like Tableau or Power BI or Click is it is tailored towards the business user, and the functionality is just so superior to what was available historically, and it happened so quickly that those are the sort of things that are going to just naturally happen, I would say.
Right. I agree, and I think it continues to evolve, and it also evolves in the back end too, right? There are tools like Alteryx. There are tools like Tableau Data Prep, which enables the business users to do the data wrangling. They don't have to wait for IT to do code mash and then do transformation. That bridge is getting smaller and smaller as time goes on, and it continue to do that. And a lot of these products are not as at maturity levels that you would want for doing the entire ETL stack of operations, but it does a fair bit, and we encourage that too. I mean, we encourage that within reason, because what the way we look at it is data is our asset, and we want to make sure it is clean, it is collated, and it is governed. And it is governed in a way that you're not getting duplication, you're not having issues with multiple replicated copies of the same siloed data sets all over the place. That's what we want to decrease within the organization, because that just creates a lot more headcount that is needed to support such workflows. So we are focusing strongly in building a data lake that's sustainable, not just dumping data into it, and then which is standardized and it is certified. Like the Twitter's checked the check mark, and Instagram has a blue tick mark. So we're trying to do the similar thing using a product called Zenoptics. It's like a small startup based off of the Bay Area, and it's a great startup because regardless of your reports, say you go for purchasing data sets, and you have a Tableau, OBIE, business objects, you have say MicroStrategy or some other tools of reports that are there. What Zenoptics does is it's like a BI hub. It has one-stop shop based off your data set or your report domain. You can put them all into this one portal, which is basically a web browser-based portal, and then it enables it. So we've been trying to implement that at scale. We have done a smaller implementation to make that available, and people can go at that data and that reports that are standardized and enterprise metric, and then they can make duplications of them as and when. So now we're using some few other tools like that.
Yeah, interesting. I'm really interested to look up that particular tool myself, actually. Sorry if there's a bit of noise in the background. Just I'm at home at the moment, Christmas Eve here, so just got my children around. But thanks for understanding. Now, I think there's, as I mentioned just before, I think there's a few things that I'd like to go into around the data engineering piece that I think would be great to just unpack a little bit. Like, not everyone, I believe, knows what a data lake is, or like the specifics around a data lake, and why everyone's doing this. Why is everyone evolving to this data lake now? So I would be interested to get like a layman's perspective, or like just like an easy overview of how and why everyone you would want a data lake. And then maybe what sort of technology you can use to create it for a business, maybe a smaller business, a medium-sized business, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first question people come and to IT is like, I need data. I need this data. I need that data. I need this thing that's available. It could be in 20 different data sources. It could be a SQL Server database. It could be in an Oracle. It could be flat files, XML files, Parquet files. It's structured, unstructured. It is, no matter what. It could be in AWS or a sensor data that you're getting from IoT devices. No matter what, someone's coming to you for data, and then they want to know what that data says. And they want to know if they can generate some kind of an insight and then convert it into some kind of a profit. That is the basics of everyone's organization's 101 need, no matter how big or small, mom and pop shop or $100 billion company or like a $20 billion company like that we are. So the data lake basically enables that. Conceptually, that is what it is there to help. It is helping to have various data warehouses, which are structurized data models that are built for various data sets to make reporting faster, available from OLTP apps to flattened reports or dashboards. It enables data science teams, right? If you want to create a machine learning or AI based algorithms of some massive amount of data that hasn't been that's just been classified and hasn't been like normalized, but it is still sitting out there, but they need to go access that raw data, and that's where you dump it within your data lake. You dump applications data. You can say, hey, you have multiple cloud apps or web apps or whatever that's generating. There's certain data sets that you want the organization to, instead of you going directly to the database that app is running. So because the problem happens is when you have traffic going directly to the application database, uh, user traffic going, you are going to bring that application down to its knees. That's why you need to get it out in a way that you can go reporting off, which is like the 101 back in the day, right? But having that along with all the other data sets be available within the same lake, like the way that we're calling, makes it easier and accessible for users. So that's the basic understanding. That's how I would say, like in layman's terms, right? And there are so many solutions that would enable that. You can have various layers within the lake, right? You can have basic strong raw data, and then you have either blob storage, or you have flat files, XML, Parquet files, all JSON files living in that area. And then you can have the next layer, which is a little bit more normalized, standardized, with dimensions that are that are organized in a way that it could be cataloged and streamlined. So and like Snowflake gives you a lot of that ability, and it's one of really good options that you have. You can build them on Amazon Redshift, AWS Redshift. You can build your data lake on Google's BigQuery. So I mean, those are definitely the three best options that are available. But for and I've written a Medium article comparing those three currently available great platforms on the cloud. It's Snowflake versus Redshift versus Google BigQuery, and what are the differences, and what would work for a small size organization or a big size, and what is their customer. It's a little bit dated article. I think I wrote it like about a year and a half, and it's also widely read. The views on that is ridiculous. Every week I think I get about 1,500 views, and I get a couple of emails or tweets response on that. So if you want to look it up, it's on Medium.
Yeah. I would say you probably get a lot of Google traffic, because even myself, I've looked into these databases, but it's so hard to understand the pricing and the difference in features. So you probably get, everyone's probably typing that into Google, and they're all going to your Medium article.
Yeah, that's how I think I'm getting all the traffic, because I've been asked the same question. I've been asked that question every week for months. And we've done that research, and I was one of the early adopters to start looking at Snowflake. We've been looking at Snowflake for over 3.5 years, and we actually started an implementation less than 2 years ago, and we've seen the product evolve, the offering and the platform evolve right from then, and so did I and my team. We did an evaluation on Redshift as well as Google BigQuery, right? So we learned a lot, and a lot of that data, a lot of that evaluation, data that we use for pricing, for market segmentation. What's the target market like? What are the sizes? How much is what is it? What's the difference between the SQL language? Snowflake uses NoSQL. What is BigQuery has its proprietary stuff, and ANSI SQL, how much of that is used. So there's a lot of things category wise that I put in there, and then I said, you know what, I'll just put it out there so people can go ahead. And so if anyone asks me about it, I'll send the link. So that's how it came out to be. So it was my first article that's on Medium.
Nice. Well, I actually want to learn a little bit more about Snowflake in a second, but I just want to round off the concept of a data lake a little bit. So to me, like a lot of organizations, medium to large organizations, they've probably got all these legacy systems, right? And is a data lake also solving that? So instead of having, 20 different systems that users might need to connect to for some sort of data, and the ability to handle those sort of queries. Those
Yeah.
legacy systems aren't sort of built to do that in a lot of cases. So a data lake can solve that. It can allow you to bring all your data into
It,
one place, and I
in a
presume in the
way,
cloud, and you can
yeah.
scale up or down your resources depending on your internal requirements at any time.
Yeah, in a way, yes, but data lakes are tricky. If they're not governed, they turn out to be swamps. I mean, then they are
Right.
data. That's like somebody coined that like a while ago. Data lakes turn into data swamps in 6 months if you're not using it right, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a dumping ground for everything that's out there. You actually have to have quality data. So here's how I look at it. You know, it's a terminology. If you have, say per se, you have multiple data warehouses in one database, you could call it a minuscule data lake, like, for whatever reason, right? For the
Mm-hmm.
reporting and analytics purpose, you have multiple data warehouses. Say you have, you know all your supply chain and the finance data sets in one, all warehouses are in one Oracle database. Technically, if you want to go from the terminology wise, that is your data lake. It is one database. It's having all your warehouses and has all the data sets, and a lot of people are accessing that for various business uh, uh, purposes, to solving problems. So that's your data lake. But it gets a lot more dangerous and complex when you are talking, multiple data sources, and you bringing that data. It is very important to have a governing authority on what's going there and how is it maintained. Is it maintained well? Is it cataloged well? What is your standardized dimensions that are going to define all of your data sets within your data lake? What about semi-structured data, right? What about, are you going to also put files in there? Are you also going to put, what do you call, maybe image files in there, or like XML files in there? How are they going to be consumed into it? Snowflake gives you an ability to query directly XML, CSV, JSON, and Parquet files. That's huge. So that decreases your data engineering or your ETL process for writing that, the extract, transform, and load process for writing that data into your database. It goes by phenomenally by a lot less. So there are tools that help it, but data lakes, it is it I wouldn't really put it as a platform or like a software or like a solution, but it is something that you need to develop within your organization for whatever you want. You can call it whatever. Some people call it enterprise data repository, or
Right.
or enterprise data lake. This, and you can come up with multiple different names, but it is like a common ground where you are agreeing as an organization, be it
Mm.
25 people or 1,000 people. And usually data lakes come to be of billion dollar companies, because smaller companies they know where their data sets are, they know their compute sizes and all
Mm-hmm.
that. But when you add the beginning of data science teams, their biggest problem and their biggest complaint, any data scientist or data science team, true data science team that you talk to them, the first complaint is like, oh, we don't have access to this data, but we have to take that over, bring it over, and they spend about 85 on an average, every data science um, uh, project or analysts that they're working on a project, they spend about 85% cleaning, and creating test data, training data, missing data, and then normalizing the data so it fills into the bell curve, and
Mm-hmm.
making it ready for the model to run. That takes like 85% of the time. Running the model is not rocket science anymore. I mean, before, like, yes, 10 years ago, you're supposed to write the entire chi-square algorithm or regression. You need to write that entire statistic based thing. Now you have functions readily available. You can kick them off using Python. You don't need fancy data science degrees.
Mm.
You a little a software programmer with a little bit more understanding of what are you doing in statistics, and then you basically evolve to be a data scientist. That's the other gap that it is decreasing and minimizing, and it's basically like making data more self-service. That's the whole concept behind it. Like I don't know, I went on a tangent there, but I hope I answered.
No,
some of.
look, I find it really fascinating because this might seem like some enterprise level term, but I tend to think that it's more than that, because if you think about even small to medium sized businesses have some sort of requirements here, because everyone's using SaaS based software more and
Right.
more. The sort of penetration into the market around everything that any business does is be more cloud based, and so a lot of this data isn't actually very accessible.
Right.
A lot of these companies don't make it readily accessible to reach into their database and grab your data, right? So if businesses want to be more data driven, and that is the software that is capturing all your data, well, then you need to really actually create a data lake yourself to then
Right.
go and run, to go and use Tableau, to use Power BI, to use Excel
Right.
even. So
Yes.
to me, the concept of a data lake is moving down market at a rapid speed.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it might sound like some fancy enterprise marketing term, but it actually in reality is far more relevant to all businesses of all sizes.
It truly is. I mean, having your staging data available and raw data available for everyone within the organization, go to the data lake, right? So you have 10 applications, or you have like 100,000 applications, and they all have different databases, or maybe they are all SaaS, like you said, SaaS. Most of them are SaaS-based apps that are in the cloud. So you generate an API and get the data packets created and dump it into the data lake before you start using for whatever purpose. So then, if somebody else also wants to go to that same data set, it's readily there. You don't need to duplicate it from one database to the other. It's already there. And compute is not a problem. Storage is extremely cheap right now, so you can throw a terabyte out there in Snowflake for $22 a month or less. And that's extremely cheap, and you keep throwing more terabytes in there, and you can, and if it gets ridiculously large, then you can put it on cold storage, and that's pennies on the dollar, right? So
Mm, mm,
there is so many options that the cloud makes it available, that problems of the past are really not problems, but the problems now of the future are, how are you going to get there? How are you going to build it? How are you going to manage it? Because the scale is grown so big that you need like tools like data catalogs. Like Informatica provides data catalogs. There's multiple vendors that are there that gives you like metadata of your metadata of your metadata, in order to
yeah.
really truly understand and to profile what's out there. So yeah,
Mm,
it's going to be every company's 101 is like, okay, where is my first platform, our platform's standard storage layer going to be? That's your data lake.
mm, yeah. Yeah.
You don't know, but you have one already. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I honestly think that this term is going to go far more down market than you think. Like
Yeah.
everyone talks about going up market, but to me, data lakes are going down market, because every
Hmm.
single business, whether you're 10 person or you're 1,000, I mean, you probably need a data lake if you want to do any type of analysis, because your
Right.
data is just going to be everywhere. Do you think that actually leads us on to Snowflake, which I think is good, because I've heard about Snowflake. I mainly in the news because they went public at some ridiculous
Hmm.
valuation.
Right.
They've got like 500 million of revenue, and they're valued at like 50 billion or something ridiculous like that.
Right.
Do you think that is actually because of what we just talked about? Like this is becoming so core to like every
Hmm.
business. And then,
Yeah.
following your view on that, like, what is the big deal about Snowflake? Well, why is it better than, say, like established players like Azure or AWS or Oracle or whatever? Like, why are they the next best thing in this particular area?
That could be a separate segment in itself. But that's a loaded question. So
Right.
Snowflake actually addressed a problem that everybody knew existed, but nobody thought needed solving, because Oracle has been the industry and the market, and is currently still the market leader in databases, in selling. They still are. I mean, their databases are powerful. They can solve the most complicated, complex data sets, very, very efficient. But it needs an army. You need a bunch of DBAs, you need offshore support, you need disaster recovery, you need on-site, off-site, you need there's a million things that you need to do to maintain a large scale application. And they are moving into the cloud. Or, Oracle is offering all of those offerings in the cloud, but it still is clunky, right? The role of a DBA is almost getting you know almost non-existent with as cloud evolves to be. So Snowflake started with that. The biggest, the selling factor for Snowflake was like, we will divide your compute and storage. So whatever you're storing is you're storing. You say you store 1 terabyte data out there, that's a separate billing, and you're gonna get that 1 terabyte of data for how many of our applications want to use. You don't have to duplicate it. So let's talk about my shop, right? Like about a few years ago, we spent about 30, maybe this was like 3 years ago. We spent in 1 year 3,200 hours performance tuning, adding indexes, adding maintenance patches, doing all kinds of tweaking within our enterprise warehouse database, which is on Oracle, to make sure the performance is kept, because we are adding users every week and every month to our existing reporting platform, and the data is coming from an Oracle data warehouse. And that data warehouse, so the volume of data is growing by maybe 5 to 8%, but our user base is growing a lot more faster. So we are now started with like hundred something users. Now we're at like 2,000 something users, and they are accessing that data all across the globe from all time zones. So our maintenance windows have went down to very, very small to do anything on it. Reindexing, partitioning takes way too much time. And then at certain time, at 7 a.m. in the morning, all of the stores users try to get to the same database, and the thing basically hangs, and it is a powerful Oracle Exadata box database you're talking about. And even with 3,000 hours, our future, the way we are going, is like, okay, we need more compute resources. I can't throw more vCPUs to it. There's none on the server because it is on our own stack within the data center. So there are problems like that everybody started facing. So you're spending all this time on performance. But when you say compute is different with Snowflake, which means, okay, fine, I'm adding another 50 users here. I'll give them all a different compute cluster. So we'll give a different user ID for them to get in for their reports or for their group membership that we are adding to them. That traffic gets directly directed to the storage, which is the data that's out there, using the separate compute cluster. Hey, a data scientist also wants to use the same data set at the same time, but he wants way too many compute resources. You can give him a extra large or a medium, whatever size that you want, a cluster size. And you can say, hey guy, you spent $5,000 worth of credits last month, so you can also do chargebacks. That level of segregation was not available in the market, and that is why Snowflake, when it came in, everybody was intrigued, because this is new. I mean, you're talking about no more DBA maintenance. You're not talking about no more critical patches. You're talking about no more needing partitioning or indexing or adding constraints to make things happen and the keys. So that was like a huge selling point. That is when they started, right? That's how they started getting industry traction. Today, where they are, they evolved in 3 phases, the way I think, at least the way I don't work for Snowflake, but from what I've been reading and from what I read. So they started with selling virtual data warehouses, which gives you compute and storage separately. And they evolved to be what you call a virtual, data cloud. So today what they are is they call themselves like the data cloud. Is no matter what your platform is, on-prem, AWS, GCP, or Microsoft Azure, doesn't matter. We are one data cloud, and we would be able to run on all your platforms, and we would be bringing all of the enterprises data into one standard platform, and everybody will be using that. Their partnership with Salesforce to get Salesforce data, which is again used to have their own proprietary SOQL database. That's the query language. It's not a normalized database language that they use. It's called SOQL, and bringing that data into Snowflake and converting that into ANSI SQL is a huge, huge move, because Salesforce had all the other integration issues that we can talk about another day. So from there to today, to be this one data cloud platform, their vision is on the money, and the products is very simplistic. It is like the Apple of the database, I would say, right? It gives you that ease of use, and there is no frills attached. So I know I went on quite a depth in there, but I hope I gave some kind of an understanding as how they came to be. And
no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I just want to summarize it, because I think this is, you talk in some technical terms because that's your background and that's your experience. But I don't think every listener knows all about. Every listener, some are just business users, I would say, but some would have more IT backgrounds also. But just to summarize that, so it seems like, and this is something that even small businesses, medium-sized businesses could look at. Like Snowflake looks like they are trying to develop the easiest to use platform that can become this data lake layer for organizations, right? So you could have legacy systems which sit on on-prem databases. You could have cloud-based systems in Azure, AWS, Salesforce. You could have SaaS-based systems that are all based, all their data's in the cloud, and they're trying to become the Apple of databases, making it super easy to bring all of these things, create a lake that you can then go and do all of your fancy analysis or self-service analysis, no matter how big or small you are.
Right, exactly. And maybe I'll add like a couple of small things. They're also giving, providing a platform for some new concepts, which like, data share house and the data as a marketplace. So you can go like literally like how you go into Apple App Store and then say, hey, I want to get this app. So now you can say, hey, I want to get this data. What is it? Is it public data? It's private data, whatever it is, you can pay for it. There is marketing data that's available. Say, for instance, you have weather data that's available within their data share house. Let me take a recent example, right? With coronavirus going on, John Hopkins generates, the everyday, the number of cases across the world, and how much it has gone up by, what is the death count, and unfortunate all numbers that are all there, and it generates in a CSV file, and it's available on their website. So one person from this consulting company, all he did is created one data pipeline, took that data set from John Hopkins, drop CSV file, put it onto a Snowflake database, made that database available publicly. And as soon as that file comes in, their database gets updated, and everybody can just go to that one database, and you're real time. So your data is not, as soon, whenever that data gets updated by a file so we don't have to rewrite that ETL code. So if I need to go and check that COVID data today, I can, and if I have access to this gentleman's database that he put on Snowflake data share house, right? And I have the access now. I'm just querying his database directly. He's the one who wrote the data pipeline to convert that file into a database data set. And similarly, concepts like that, where weather data, exchange rates, where various currency exchange rates, they change by the minute, right? And when all organizations usually get a flat file of what the exchange rates were for the last yesterday or for the last week, and there's forecasted value for the next week usually, right? And depending on that, databases get that, but it's never real-time data. It's always the moment you get the file, it's already out of date. But now having a database that's globally available, anybody can query things. That's a new concept that Snowflake is making available. And I think that's where they're going with the concept of data cloud. Anybody in the world can, subscribe and publish, a data set to the world without needing the infrastructure behind it. If I want to make it that simplistic, it literally is that simplistic. You don't need to, you don't need to like have a server running somewhere. You don't need to any. All you need to do is get access. You have a key. You have Snowflake subscription. You write a select star from whatever the table you want, and you're looking at the data, live data, right there, and they're available. And the whole thing, we can go into egress and all that, and how that data moves and all that, but that's not necessary because a lot of people don't have that. And I think, and they want to make that across. And another thing I want to also mention is they have this coined recently in their CEO, Snowflake CEO Frank Slootman coined a term called data, the time value of data. We all know time value of money, but the time value of data is how quickly can you generate value from the data that you have available. And if you move on, right, from that time, like at a particular time, you can see, hey, what is my sales based on these 10 different attributes or these 100 different attributes? And then your model gives you an outcome. But imagine your model takes 3 days to generate that, but your time that you're asking for it to be done is like today or next 6 hours, So, but the insight that is getting generated 3 days later or 2 days later is not any of value to anyone. Because if you are spending 85% of your, predictive models on, collecting data, merging, purging, and wrangling it, you're lost the time value of data at that point. So it is a very interesting concept. And if you Google like time value of data, it is where the entire cloud-based architecture is going towards, is to make data available quickly, efficiently, and with great performance. If you have large data sets, performance is the biggest issue that most people tend to have. But I thought I'll drop that in there because it makes different user base understand, and that's a platform. That's what Snowflake enables as a platform. I mean, and kind of a key differentiator, I would say.
Yeah, that's super fascinating, and I'm glad that we've really dived into Snowflake because it does actually, the news is all about their crazy valuation, but to me, it makes a bit more sense now. I mean, not to the extreme that it's valued at right now, but the fact that it looks like they are unlocking, they are enabling the unlocking of an enormous amount of value from data assets. That just like Apple unlocked a huge amount of value around applications and mobile technologies, right?
Right.
Things that you hadn't even dreamed of before, like Uber, etc., couldn't exist without Apple. But maybe the same could happen with Snowflake. Is that kind of what you think the market or just people in general are thinking? They're democratizing it, right?
They definitely are, and the evaluation is so crazy because the vision is clear, and there is nobody else doing that same. There is no other competition right now within that space.
Right.
And them being platform agnostic the way they're not sucking you into Amazon. They're not sucking you in. So if you go with Redshift, you are confined within Amazon's offerings. You are sucked into their entire ecosystem. It gives you the platform agnostic and level of control where you have control on what's out there, your data. And you're right. I mean, it is democratization of data, making it available, to everyone, to the masses, and not selling you their products. Their product is pretty simple: data cloud, and they want to be a efficient platform for data. And they're giving Oracle a run for their money. They're giving a lot of similar, but they're also building partnerships. And I think the vision is so clear, which is why they have a long way to go. There's still like a lot of engineering that needs to happen in the background to make this platform. A lot of features that are missing, but they are working. They have a timeline and a roadmap for a lot of those features to be enabled in order to truly become that one database in the universe that technically to go to for most of your needs is basically what their goal and their vision is. And I think that is kind of a lofty goal, but they're on track, and they delivered, and their customers are seeing, and most of them are actually are um, you know um, becoming multiple 2x 3x fold customers every year as year goes on. So you see that more and more in all the stories I spoken to. I have friends in most Fortune 50 companies who are running similar size teams, and a lot of them have been very skeptical if you would have asked them about Snowflake 2 years ago, because you're promising the world, right? But are you really going to be there? But yeah, I think there is definitely future hope, and it is a great platform. You don't know where it will be 5 years from now, but for sure for next 2 to 3 years, I'm sure it's gonna continue to do well.
Yeah, look, I think this is a unique topic that we've gone into today, and I know we've dived into a specific technology quite heavily, but I do feel that there is this massive gap around resourcing and also knowledge about how to get these data pipelines together for organizations that might not be as large as, say, yours, or that are just that are growing, that are young and are growing businesses. Maybe they've got 20 employees, maybe they've got 100. Not everyone understands how to bring all this together, and maybe Snowflake, as part of their vision, is to really enable that for because even when I look at like Azure or AWS, like I would guess that even small businesses between small to medium-sized businesses still really don't know where to start when they try and build up their data pipelines, their data analytics initiatives. Like, it's still quite complex, quite difficult. I mean, just to create like a data lake in Azure, I know you need to like be running 6 different technologies in the Azure platform just to sort of get it going. And so, Snowflake to me sounds like, I mean, I haven't used it extensively myself, but it sounds like it is simplifying that process, an incredible amount. And I think that is something that our listeners should explore further if they are still at the beginning of their journey around putting the infrastructure around their analytics initiatives together.
Yeah, I agree. And then it also, I think the fact that it doesn't suck you into an ecosystem, and you're not like, hey, if you're not sure, okay, you don't know if you are going to be on AWS for everything or Azure for everything that your organization needs, you don't need to commit to that. Even if you have Office 365, right? You can still work a lot of that data that's on Snowflake. So I mean, nobody wants to commit. That's the other thing, to one platform, because you don't know where you are going to be in the future. So it is gives you the ability to not be really tied down. And you brought up one thing, right? Not everybody has the ability to do ETL or transformation and all of that. Smaller shops. The concept of data virtualization, having data available in a semantic layer, where people can get to it in this virtualization layer for smaller companies makes a lot more sense. For smaller data sets where you're not moving a lot of data. There are companies like Donato and few others that are out there that are actually doing really good work in this space, but they can only do small data sets, and performance is of issue. And Gartner says virtualization is in the peak of the hype cycle, and it works. But I'll tell you, Sam, end of the day, for majority of today's business needs, a simple star schema will solve the problem. A simple data model. So if you are bringing a lot of this data from the cloud, from say ServiceNow, Coupa applications, or whatever applications you're looking from the cloud, you're bringing into your data layer, which whatever you want to have it, right? At that Microsoft Synapse or Redshift, whatever your data layer is going to be, Your bottom line needs to be to answer the question: is the movement, is the ingestion into that layer easy? And once it is there, am I able to massage it so I can really use it easily? I think those are going to be two strong questions that everyone and every organization needs to really focus and ask themselves before they make picking vendors a priority. Because you know what, there is 100 different ways to do the same thing, but is it, I mean, it's again preference, and it is, a lot of things you need to take into consideration. But yeah.
I'm also interested just to touch upon. I know we've gone a bit longer than we anticipated, but it's been really interesting diving into these topics. The data share housing that you mentioned. So so this is something that's Snowflake, it sounds like, following through on. So is this a way that if you've got an interesting data set, you can monetize it? Is that what they're trying to
Yes, you can.
enable?
Yes, you can actually. You definitely can. And it is not a new topic. It's been this theory has been around for a while, but really making it happen is, and maybe I'm wrong. If I am, please hit me up on Twitter or anywhere and let me know. But Microsoft Azure has data marketplace. It is same thing as what Snowflake has, data marketplace. So you have your data sets, say census data, right? Standard. It's free public data that's available on their website, which is basically a CSV and XML file. You have it available on data marketplace, and Snowflake has that too, and so does a few other platforms, but not at scale at which what Snowflake is enabling. But Snowflake is enabling peer-to-peer, database to database. You're not getting a file. You're not getting, saying, okay, fine, I'll give you access to my database, whatever, right? Whatever the terms are. Are you going to make money or not? All that is a different conversation. You can do licensing, you can do a whole bunch of things there. But I'll give you access to my database. But when you get access to my database, you're not doing ingestion, transformation, ETL on it. You're just directly querying the database. You're writing a query straight on their database, no matter where you are, no matter where your clusters are. They have it implemented in the East US, in in Virginia in the US, and you're reaching from, say, Hong Kong's data center. It doesn't matter. You're still hitting the same database, and it is a global footprint. And I think that is really, really neat. And I think that is at scale, that will be beautiful in few years, because the amount of time that we waste moving data, transforming, and why do you want to do it? Why do you want to recreate the wheel when somebody has done it? Just like the COVID situation, example that I told you, one person did it, one company has done it, and he gave access to several other companies, myself included, right? To get that free. That's a public data set, but they have taken time to build that transformation, the ETL logic there, to make that available in a database. We all don't have to. We all save 20 hours or something, to build that pipeline. There.
Yeah.
And I think there is one other thing Snowflake is doing right now. They are, it's like a Shark Tank, but for business ideas that you can run on data marketplace and data share houses, where they're going to fund X amount of dollars. I don't know. It's an interesting. I think. Maybe $250,000 or $500,000 in seed money for your company, for your pitch. You're basically pitching an idea. This is what we can do, and it is a really cool platform. And you can submit your entries, and they're going to review it, and they get back to you. And if it is a cool thing, they'll fund you and fund your company to go ahead and go ahead and do the project and make those data sets available. So I don't really remember the name of that, but it is on Snowflake's website. If you go community.snowflake.com or something, I think it'll pop up right away. But.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going to myself. I know what Snowflake is, but I'm not fully across all these different attributes to the platform that you're mentioning. So I'm really going to dive into it myself, and I can see just enormous value unlocks from using from what they are trying to do, or what they have already. Like I remember discussing this with one of our guests, and they merged with they acquired a company, and then they had this 3-year roadmap just to get the data into their system. And I was like, 3 years, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like if you have your sort of data lake set up, or the infrastructure set up in a way that Snowflake has, Snowflake and Snowflake's vision, then the idea would be that you could just basically just query the new data source, and then you're ready to go. So you potentially are taking 3 years down to a matter of months, maybe.
Yeah, and that's where the whole the vision of data suppliers and data monetization, like you said, if you are, so there is a lot of like, I come from a consulting background myself, so there are a lot of consulting companies that are out there doing the same exact thing for 20 different customers until the software gets old and the version is not something different. They do it for one customer, they reuse the code for so many other customers, and then basically to build these pipelines, build when I keep saying ETL, that is basically extracting your data, transforming it, and loading it in somewhere else, reusing that. A lot of that businesses will be redundant because pipelines can also be reusable, and I think data as a service is where the future is going. And everybody wants the data, but you don't want to do the manipulation, the massaging of it to conform to your needs. And those you can subscribe to various data pipelines. Companies like Fivetran are also making that possible, right? Say we are moving this big chunk of data from this area to this area. They said, don't worry about it. We will take care of it. We will build those pipelines. You just tell what's your source, what's your target. And they work really well with Snowflake, and companies like Matillion, Informatica. They are really, really evolving the space, and they're making it user, making it very comfortable for the user to quickly build those, integrations, regardless of the platform. And that is a huge area. And also there is this entire movement of AI for building these pipelines, AI-based pipelines. So that is also very interesting to look at. A lot of these technologies are pretty nascent, and they claim to be a lot more mature than they are. So it was but not if you always, I recommend to go to the Gartner's Magic Quadrant to see which vendor is at which part of their journey, and they're mature or not. So yeah, and that would be another plug I think I thought I'd put in the conversation.
It definitely sounds like we're going to have to get you back on, Richie, at some point, because there's so much more that we can talk about that I just don't think we've got time for. Because I think we'll do one last question, and this is a broad one that you can take in whatever direction you like. What is, obviously you're working in a large organization, both from an employee perspective, but also geographical footprint.
Yes.
What are some of the unique things that you have had to deal with such a wide scope like that?
Oh man, it's rough actually. Legacy applications, no matter how big or small your organization is, we all deal with things of the past, right? Net new projects are always the fun thing to do. Brand new projects, it's okay. We can build it wherever we want, however we want, whichever platform we want. So the reality for people in my role or similar role, or organizations the size of us, or maybe even slightly smaller, they all have to deal with upgrades, migration, and where's the future for that app is going to be. We spend about 50% of our time in a lot of that, applications changing platforms, and then applications being upgraded, and then the back end, pardon me, Sorry about that.
All good.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, to answer your question, where are you going to spend a lot more time with migrations and upgrades and keeping up to date of your applications.
Right.
I'm sorry, I totally with that phone call it threw me off. What was the question again?
No, you were just highlighting how you have to deal so much with legacy systems, and the preference is to deal with all this new and shiny stuff, but it seems like a lot of your time is getting sucked into managing updates on legacy softwares, legacy platforms.
Yes.
Making sure that cleaning up like messy data from these systems, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, that's the dirty part of the job. I mean, which you have to keep going. But always, what's important is to look to the future as where we are going. Our journey into the cloud, our journey to break down data silos, our journey into having better governed and cataloged data to make things happen, projects happen quickly. And when you're talking global, we are talking about regulations that are different, taxation laws that are different. There are different. You need to take GDPR, CCP, all of these SOX compliances into consideration, and keeping them adhering to all of that and running a shop, is quite a lot. It is a very, it's a team effort, and you have to be extremely collaborative, and IT cannot work in silo anymore. IT has to be in lockstep with business, in lockstep with the leadership, and IT is no longer, or data is no longer, what do you call, an expense in this generation. It is in fact an asset. And if companies treat it as an expense, or if treat it as something that you have to, just pay to keep things going, then you're looking at it wrong. Because and I think that initiative and that drive needs to come from top down. And when the leadership really understands and gets the urgency and importance of that, there will be truly transformed organizations that can really do big things in the future. And vision is important too. So I think I would probably want to end on that. So with modernizing your stack, don't just go for things that are shiny and that's are out there, but check for the pulse of your customer. Who's your end user? See what works. Cloud is good. Cloud is not bad. Cloud is make it work for you instead of you guys getting sucked into it. So there is, do a lot of due diligence and don't recreate the wheel. I would say a lot of companies, okay, I'm going to do another evaluation. Hey, 200 people have done the same evaluation. Use consulting companies. Use resources that are out there, I would say. So there's a lot. I think it's an interesting space. It's evolving a lot. Every 2 months, things are different. So it's very important to be up to date in this space. So.
Yeah, one thing that is undeniable is how exciting the space is. Every time I talk to people like yourself on these episodes of the podcast, that gets me excited about what's possible. I mean, even just some of the things you mentioned around the data sharehouse and the unlocking of all of these data assets. I mean, there's enormous potential. It's just ridiculous how much potential there is. So really appreciate all your insights. That was a great convo, Richie. Really think that we covered a lot of new and interesting ideas and tips during this particular session. So I really appreciate your insights and experience that you've been able to share.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you guys and your viewers, sorry, not viewers, but your listeners have found some value from this conversation. And and if anyone wants to reach out to me on any platform, it is Richie Bachala, Bachala, my last name, and I'll be happy to have more conversations.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Richie, we actually put this up on the Enterprise DNA YouTube channel as well. So there is viewers and there are listeners. So that's that's just
okay.
Yeah.
I would have combed my hair if I would have known that.
No, you're looking sharp. You're looking sharp, mate. So we'll so yeah, so it's on all so definitely tune in, on all your favorite podcast listening apps. We also put this up on our YouTube channel, the Enterprise DNA channel. We also, by the way, have an Analytic Mind YouTube channel as well, where we put small snippets of our conversation. So we have a number of subscribers there too, and obviously we're pretty young, so we're still building up our viewership and our listeners, but we're growing fast, which is really exciting. So thanks to all the listeners out there who are participating and getting involved in the channel and through all the different ways that we're distributing the content. Okay, Richie, really appreciate it. Let's round it off.
Sam.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Have a good one. Take care.